The company was getting ready to go public. I had been overhauling all the safety systems under a new leadership team. So we had a lot to say about how things are better. And we thought that was a good story leading up to going public. And so I started writing a lot. And as I started writing a lot, I was like, oh, I have a lot of things to say. Like, I have more to say than I thought that I did.
I'm Cassie Cocaro, Head of Communications at Thorn.
And I'm Paylor Talai, Senior Manager of Partnerships at Thorn, and this is Safe Space.
Okay, Paylor, hi, how are you?
I'm great, Cassie. How are you?
Good. Well, we're back today. We are talking to someone who is really a connector in the trust and safety community. And I was just thinking about the trust and safety community and the fact that there is a lot of cohesiveness and togetherness within the community. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've only been part of this community for maybe 5 years, but that definitely resonates with me, yeah.
Yeah, well, we certainly can't work in silos in this difficult space. So our guest today, Alice Hunsberger, has spent over 16 years in trust and safety, which is basically a million years in trust and safety years. She's led teams at OkCupid, Grindr, Partner Hero before joining Masubi, where she is now. She leads trust and safety strategy at the intersection of AI and safety. She's a prolific writer and a community builder, and one of the most consistent voices advocating for the humans doing this work and sort of building that community that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think whether you're new to this industry or you've been around for a long time, chances are you know Alice, and if you don't, you should get to know her. So yeah, I'm really excited to dig into her thoughts today.
Welcome, Alice. We're so happy you're here today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited. So to get started, we always start the same way. We like to ask our guests to share what they wanted to be when they grew up. So tell us about little Alice. What did you think you would be doing as an adult when you were smaller?
I changed my mind all the time. I wanted to be a vet for a while. I wanted to run a restaurant. I wanted to be a writer. And in a roundabout way, I think I've accomplished that. It was always changing though, sort of depending on my whims at the time.
Yeah, I think that's totally normal. So my question is, you're definitely a writer. Have you ever worked in a restaurant and do you have pets?
I worked at a coffee shop, and I always have a side hustle, like no matter what. And I had a side hustle doing catering for neighbors for a while. And yes, I have a black lab as a pet.
Okay, so you kind of made all your dreams come true in a way.
plus some.
Totally. Well, that's awesome. Thank you again for being here. I kind of want to dive into the conversation now and talk about how you got here into this trust and safety world. You've said to us that you fell into trust and safety sort of by accident. I think your roots were in community building and you've always been a helper, I think, is how I've heard you describe yourself. So that seems to be somewhat of a common origin story in this field. But talk to us about the moment where you got into this field, the moment that sort of you were like, okay, I'm in trust and safety now.
The preamble to being officially in trust and safety was when I was in college, which is 20-something years ago now because I'm very old. I had a little DIY message board. This is before Facebook, before MySpace even, before any real social media. And I learned really fast when I had this message board is you have to have community guidelines, you have to have governance structures, you have to have means of enforcement. And so I got a crash course in online community management way back then. And it was actually like pretty traumatic and horrible. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. And my degree was in documentary filmmaking. And I was a documentary editor, worked in film and TV for many years. And then in 2009, there was a recession and nobody was making documentaries anymore. And I was a gig worker, waiting for the next film to pop up. And so I was looking for regular work to pay the bills. And I happened to know one of the founders of OkCupid, and he needed content moderators to find romance scammers. And so I was hired. I had as much experience as anybody at the time because I'd been doing this community management on my own for many years and kind of knew the basics. And so, yeah, that's how I got started in tech. It was not called trust and safety. I didn't know that trust and safety was a thing. It didn't occur to me that you could do this professionally. It was many, many years, I think, until I really realized, oh, this is what I do now. But yeah, it was that was how I entered.
Yeah, what was that first experience like? Just you're like, okay, now I'm here looking for romance scammers. That feels like something new, even though you were kind of doing community management before
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, it was so funny. It was a 20-person company at the time. It was really small. There's no full-time safety people really. I got trained by one of the engineers who had built the tool. And every couple minutes I would go to him and I'd be like, "This looks weird. Is this a scammer?" And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, like, here's the tell." But it was very um unstructured onboarding, I would say, and I just had to figure it out and get intuitive about it, and that is just like so different from how things are today. But it was, yeah, I mean, romance scammers at the time too were like very obvious. It wasn't very sophisticated. The profiles were like literally, I'm a prince in Nigeria, and nobody knew the Nigerian prince scam was like a scam yet.
Right. It
And
wasn't a
so
trope like it is now.
yeah, they could
Totally.
get away with literally saying that. That's where it came from. And so yeah, those were the simple old days.
Yeah, I never thought about trust and safety as detective work, but that's sort of what I was getting from when you were talking about that. I want to get a little bit more into your trust and safety life right now, but once you realized you were in the trust and safety world, what has kept you in it?
I think two things. I think one is just feeling like I'm helping people and making the world a better place. I've always cared about making the world a better place and wanting to feel like my actions make a difference, and trust and safety work definitely does that. I think the other is it changes so fast
Mm.
between the technology that's available, dealing with adversarial, problems that change constantly, the way that tech companies change and grow really quickly, the way that social norms and expectations of online spaces changes. Now we have regulation that changes also very quickly. And so it's never the same. I feel like every year I have a new job, even if I literally am at the same company with the same title, the world around me changes so much that it's constantly adapting, and that keeps my brain engaged and excited.
Yeah, that is very cool. And we're going to talk about it in a little while. But I think the way that you're a connector and sort of sharing information out into the world is one of the ways that and I know a lot of people who are more hands on trust and safety practitioners, kind of stay up to date on these things. So you're also contributing to that knowledge. So that's really awesome. It is fast moving. So I want to talk a little bit about your time in trust and safety and get a little into that right now. So you have led trust and safety teams at so many different places. OkCupid, Grinder, Partner Hero. Now you're at Masubi. These are all so different and they have way different user bases and safety profiles, and I'm sure risks and considerations. So, what have you learned from each one that has sort of contributed to the trust and safety professional that you are now?
One of the coolest parts of my career, or one of the things that I'm appreciative of the most, is I've done so many different things. So, OkCupid and Grinder were both dating platforms. I was at dating platforms collectively for 13 years. So I know dating really, really well. But within dating, I was started out as a frontline moderator. So I've done that frontline work. I then managed those teams. Then managed managers. I did a ton of policy work. I did a lot of product strategy work when I was at Grinders, also doing a lot around like GDPR and other kinds of compliance things. I did a lot with machine learning in the early days, sort of starting to automate trust and safety and use technology to do trust and safety stuff at scale. Then at Partner Hero, I managed outsourced teams Whereas like at OkCupid and Grindr, I was managing outsourced teams from the inside of the platform. I saw how it was from the other side. Now at Musubi, we're building AI tools for trust and safety teams. So I get to see that vendor side, again, from the vendor point of view. So I feel like I've done pretty much literally every job there is to do in trust and safety. Like done product, I've done a lot of engineering related things, policy, operations, vendor stuff. So it's given me this really, really broad perspective. And then especially the last few years as I've been on the vendor side of things, I've worked with many, many, many companies across the industry. And that was an intentional choice on my part. I was like, I've been doing dating for 13 years. Now I want to like broaden my scope as much as possible across the industries. So I have this like very interesting mix of kind of having seen it all. If I have not done it all. And I think that gives me an appreciation for how hard trust and safety is. Like I say this sort of flippantly, like I've done everything, and I don't want it to seem like it's easy to do everything. I think it's given me the appreciation that every single job is hard in a different way. But the sort of way that my brain works, or the ways that I find myself succeeding the most, are connecting things. And you sort of mentioned that a little bit, Cassie. I like to be a connector in the community, but I also am always a connector at the companies that I work with. And I'm often the person who's translating between engineers and policy people, or between executives and regulators, or, whatever, BPOs and frontline internal moderators, or whatever else. I'm always the person who's kind of translating between them. And so, yeah, finding myself in jobs where I'm able to do that and have that flexibility, I think has given me an appreciation for all the people who stick in one lane and do it really, really well. It's so hard.
Yeah, Alice, I remember, I think the first time I met you was maybe around 5 years ago when you were at Grinder. And I had just kind of entered the trust and safety field, and I was learning so much working with trust and safety practitioners. And it struck me even back then, like how much knowledge you had and how in depth it was, because you were talking about red teaming and A/B testing, moderation scenarios even back then. And it's only really kind of hitting me now that it's because, not just because of how long you've been doing this work, but because of the kind of different roles and different hats you've worn. And that's kind of why you were looking at it so holistically, which at the time was surprising to me, but now it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I try to think. I try to think holistically, and I try to look at things from different perspectives. And I think that's what makes me good at trust and safety, is like looking at different perspectives um, internally at a company about how you can do things, or, as a vendor, sort of helping come up with solutions. But then also when you're thinking about putting yourself in the shoes of your users, if you're at a platform, or, what role your platform has to play in the greater tech ecosystem of online safety in general, and making the internet a place that people want to go. It all kind of requires looking at things from different angles.
So, if you listening or watching this are not subscribed to Everything in Moderation, I think that is one of the most educational, informative, prolific trust and safety publications out there right now. It's published so regularly. I can't believe how often you guys come out with it. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that has done for you, and what that has done for the community?
Yeah. So Ben Whitelaw, my friend, started Everything in Moderation years and years and years ago, and did it. Does it every week. He does a news roundup about what's happening in trust and safety. And his background is he was a journalist, and he was tasked with content moderation on the comment section of the newspaper online. And so he had like no trust and safety background, but was sort of like, at a newspaper, let's figure out how to make this comment section work, and became so fascinated with trust and safety. He's like, I'm going to write about trust and safety and like give people the resources that I wish that I had, which is very much my attitude towards things. And then when I was at Grindr, I was basically sort of pushed into the spotlight a little bit by our comms team. The company was getting ready to go public. I had been overhauling all the safety systems under a new leadership team. And so we had a lot to say about how things are better. And we thought that was a good story leading up to going public. And so I started writing a lot. And as I started writing a lot, I was like, oh, I have a lot of things to say. Like, I have more to say than I thought that I did. And a lot of it is like really nerdy and technical and not for like a public comms perspective, but like I have things to say for trust and safety people. And so I started kind of putting feelers out and joking and being like, oh, I should do a newsletter or something. And then contacted me and was like, please do it with me. Like, don't go starting on your own thing. Like, let's collaborate. And I always think collaboration is so much better than doing things alone. And Ben has made me such a better writer. He's a great editor. He holds me accountable. And so almost every week I get something out. Plus, I also write a lot for whatever company I'm working for. So at Musubi, I have a blog. When I was a partner here, I had a blog. So I think I wrote like 60 articles last year. It was crazy. It was like more than one a week. And yeah, I still have more to say. I'm not done.
Everybody wants to hear it, so keep saying it. I feel like Alice from Everything in Moderation is one of my most frequent people in my inbox. So
yeah, I mean, it's really nice for me. I would recommend, a couple things if anybody's listening and thinking about doing this. Like, I was pushed into starting to speak publicly, and once I started to do that, I saw that it resonated with people, and that was the encouragement that I needed. I didn't start feeling confident in my own writing and the things that I said. I needed, my like grinder BFF, who is a comms person, to like push me forward into the world. And so, I think a lot of people feel stuck and they feel like they don't have things to say because they haven't had that encouragement. And I would say, like, you definitely have things to say, especially, people, I think, get hung up on thinking that they have to have done everything or have a really long career in order to feel like they're an expert. But honestly, I find a lot of people want to read things from somebody who is just a couple of years ahead of them. So, if you've been doing trust and safety for 5 years, there's somebody who just started this year who, like, your advice is going to be much more relevant than mine. Like, I've been doing this for 20 years. My advice is probably not that helpful for somebody who just started yesterday. Like, my experience is so different. And so there's room for so many more different voices in the space for sure.
Well, that is amazing. And you're also making me think, as a comms person at Thorn, I need to continue to push people to share their perspective. So that's, us comms people are not so bad,
Mm-hmm.
No, that's really great. And I know that it resonates with everybody. The last thing I wanted to ask you, well, I won't say that, but another thing I wanted to ask you, and I'm probably going to botch this because it was my first TrustCon 2 years ago. I hadn't been before, and I met you when you were doing that project where you're taking input from everybody at the conference, almost into like a journal style contribution. I was just wondering if you could talk a little about that too, because I feel like that was really such a beautiful underlying moment of connection throughout that TrustCon. But I was new and overwhelmed, so I would love to hear a little bit more about it.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite projects that I feel like didn't get as much love as I hoped that it would. So I love that you brought that up. Okay, it was a zine project. Zine is in like shorthand for magazine, but I was a punk rock teenager, for anybody who would not have guessed by my millions of tattoos. And when I was a teenager in the 90s, we would do these zines, and you would just like write about whatever political stuff and do little music reviews and print them on a Xerox printer and mail them out around the country. And, this is like the internet, like social media did not exist. So this is how you found your people and communicated with other people, is through these zines. And I did a million of them when I was a teenager. And so I thought it would be really cool to do that for the trust and safety community and have something that is like for us, by us, in our own voices, encouraging each other in a very raw, authentic, unedited way. I feel like LinkedIn can be really great in so many ways, and people also are wanting to be very professional and be very polished, and it's difficult. And so I was like, oh, if this is sort of anonymous space where you don't have to write your name if you don't want to, and you can just say whatever you need. And I think the prompt was something like, what would you say to, encourage other people in trust and safety? Or what is the message that you wish that you had heard from somebody else? It was something like that. So then we just collected a bunch of responses. At TrustCon, I had a little table with a bunch of Post-it notes and postcards and stuff that people could write on, and a little Instax camera where you could take pictures and put them all together. And I did a digital zine, not a printout, because it's hard. Like, I wasn't going to mail hundreds around the country. So we just did like a little PDF of everything, but it was like very old school style. And yeah, it was really fun. It was like a fun personal project.
Yeah, that was very cool. Maybe we can, if it still lives, I'm assuming, online, maybe we can link to it.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll find the link.
Alice, a lot of what I'm hearing about kind of your background in this space to where you are today is so much about spending the time learning about the job and learning about different roles and just learning about the space in general and how these practices affect not only practitioners but also users. And now you're kind of at this really nice spot in your journey where you're able to communicate that, whether that's through your writing, whether that's through your various roles. So really, I'm really happy that you're here to kind of share that knowledge and pass that on through conversation and through your writing.
If you found that interesting, there's more to this conversation. You can catch additional highlights and the full Safe Space episode here.